last night we said when more details came out about Sherrone Moore in Michigan and the president of the University of Michigan going to Florida, that we would bring it up. Dan Wenzel, a good friend of yours, reported this morning for ESPN that Sherrone Moore is going to be suspended, a self-imposed suspension for Sherrone Moore by the University of Michigan for games 3 and 4 against Central Michigan and Nebraska, due to the fact of what happened during the sign stealing scandal. Now, that's not what they call it, but it was the sign stealing scandal. Joe, I'm going to let you go first. Your thoughts on the suspension, not proposed suspension, but suspension of Sherrone Moore.
First of all, credit to Dan Wetzel and Pete Thamel for their reporting on this and the gathering of information.
Fantastic stuff.
Yeah. To provide a little context before I just chime in here with a take. One, the suspension is directly related to the allegations that Moore deleted text messages, 52 text messages that he had with Connor Stallions to hide evidence. There is supposed to be a hearing on June 6th and 7th. And this comes before the hearing because they're trying to get ahead of it. So I expect that we're going to actually have some clarity on what the suspensions from the NCAA are going to look like, all that stuff. Michigan's just trying to do their due diligence to make it seem like that they're being compliant, whatever the hell they're trying to do. I look at the 2 games that they picked. Outside of what they did, I think that this is really stupid. I don't know why they don't just wait until the NCAA suspension. Like, are we supposed to expect that this is? I want to be perfectly clear here, Blake. This has nothing to do with my thoughts on the scandal itself. I'm not getting back into that at all. But I think that their decision to suspend him for the game after the Oklahoma game, which is significant to Sherrone because he played there, to pick 2 random nothing BS games is bullshit. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous that that's what they're going with. Why don't they just wait? There's no way that the NCAA is going to be compliant with this and say that, like, oh, yeah, this is a completely reasonable punishment that you delivered to your head coach. This whole thing means nothing to me. Who's even delivering this? Is it the athletic director who's delivering this with your president leaving? Who is the actual decision maker? I just think that this whole thing is unnecessary is how I'm reading into it.
All right. Number 1, you do not suspend him if you don't know that he's not guilty. You don't. There's no way that they're going to suspend their head coach if they don't know that he's got.
Well, he deleted text messages, and then they were able to recover those deleted text messages.
Well, then you basically, in a law enforcement level, you impeded justice. So that's even worse. It's covering it up. That's even worse. That's aiding and abetting of what he did. Why would he delete text messages?
Because he knew what they were doing was wrong. He was involved. He clearly was involved. We're not going to play dumb here.
So clearly involved, clearly in the mix of what happened here. And here's the thing. They cheated. Here's the defense that never got through to me. Everybody else is doing it. So what about Michigan? It's not how this works, Joe. It's not how it works. They got caught. I can personally take one school and say they got caught. I can say, well, let's punish that school. What I also can do is differentiate. I can't even say the word.
Differentiate.
Say it again.
Differentiate.
See, I still can't even say it, and you repeated it twice. I can do that for my own self and say if other teams are doing it and it's this blatant, go after them. Joe, they cheated. And the reason that they're getting out in front of this is because they wanted to pick the 2 games that they could control. Without Sherrone Moore, they know they can beat Central Michigan. And basically, it's a slap to Nebraska in the face saying, we don't think you can beat us. It's a slap in the face. They don't want him to be gone in week 1 when they play Rudy Putek, and then he does go against Oklahoma. They cheated. I have seen so many people that I respect, and listen, you are allowed to have your opinion on this situation. But I can look at a situation and say, just because somebody else is doing it does not excuse what they did. It does not excuse what he did and why he is taking this suspension. Joe, they got caught. And quite frankly, I am to a place for myself that I think people need to start getting really when the NCAA comes down and we have law and order on anything, that we got to stop being the people that sit back and say to ourselves, but everybody else is doing it. Oh, we can't do this they cheated. And quite frankly, for me, this is the stamp that gets put on here. I don't think that this is it, by the way. I really don't. No. By the way, do you remember the documentary with Connor Stallions?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I do too. And I went back today in episode 2, and you know what I remembered in watching episode 2? There's a 15 to 20 minute clip of him and Sherrone Moore on the sidelines, him telling him something with a play sheet of Connor Stallions telling Sherrone Moore something on the sidelines. You have video evidence, Joe. What he admits on Barstool, does Connor Stallions, that he did it. He admits on Crane and Company that he did it. So if you're getting an admission from Connor Stallions that he's giving coaches signals about what they're running defensively, and that's what those texts are about, it had to have helped them. There's no way it didn't. They cheated. And I really just don't. For me, brother, I mentally can't get over that gap of why can't we look at them as a team and say that they had wrongdoing? Okay.
In this discussion, I'm not going to sit here and say that they didn't cheat. That's never been my argument. Obviously, that's never been my argument. I have never sat here and said that they didn't cheat. Okay. And I don't disagree with that. I mean, they were caught red-handed in doing what they were doing. The suspension is an indication of, there's clear evidence that Sherrone Moore was involved in this and that there was wrongdoing. You're trying to suspend him to get ahead, to prove that you as a university are not complicit with the actions that they took, and that you're not. If there's evidence and they put up a fight, they would look stupid. And the NCAA would probably go at them harder because they have always done that. They've gone harder at people that have put up fights. The suspension that they're giving probably will not be the final one. I am not rehashing this argument with you, but I am still standing by that what they did is not some awful, wrong, slap in the face to the game, terrible thing that they did. And I stand by that. I don't think Sherrone Moore should be suspended. The absolute most should be 6 games if the NCAA comes in and suspends him more. He was the offensive coordinator. He was not the head coach at the time.
What was the record of John Harbaugh before and after Connor Stallions?
Sherrone Moore was not the head coach.
It doesn't matter. You had the offensive coordinator texting him, getting play calls, defensive play calls against a team.
The concept of sign stealing is done across the sport.
Not the way that they're doing it, Joe. Not the way that they're doing it.
I have talked to guys that played on other teams,
and you provide me
signs, and they told me that their team did it.
Fine, go after them. Go after them.
They didn't get caught. There's no evidence to prove that they did it.
Okay, so you want me to go after other teams without evidence? I have evidence here, and you're telling me to do little about it.
The problem is, and we were presented a solution this season. The only thing that should come of this is the sport changing the rules to make it something that can't happen.
Joe, you've never been able to have someone to go and scout other teams on a Saturday. That's already in the rule book.
No. But I'm saying that now with the headsets and the helmets, that has made stealing signs. It's made the concept useless. But it's something that's been around the sport for 100 years.
Fair. Sounds good. Here comes my point, though, in reference to this. Connor Stallions is on the sidelines for Central Michigan against Michigan State.
Okay.
With all due respect, that alone, I don't have other teams doing that. That alone is punishable with some level of suspension. So you got a sitting head coach that was a part of the staff, that was a part of something during a national title run, that who knows if it helped them in a national title run or not. Probably it did not. Okay. However, they cheated. I can take Ohio State. I can take Clemson. I can take Oklahoma. If all of those teams are doing it, if I am provided evidence, me specifically, and by the way, Dan Wenzel was the one who came out in the Connor Stallions documentary, if you remember, your good friend, who came in that documentary and said, and I quote, there are a lot of other teams that are doing sign stealing around college football. They're not clearly as blatant and clearly oblivious to the actions that Michigan took. The simple fact that Michigan went out there and had Connor Stallions on the sideline and we still don't have ramifications is startling, end quote by Dan Wenzel. So it would seem to me, and you can ask him better than I can, that he investigated the matter and that Michigan was doing things that were blatantly over what any other team in the country is doing. It. That is a lead reporter.
Him being on the sideline is obviously true, and that is obviously a step further that we don't have evidence of anyone else doing. And also, Elks, to you pointing out in the chat that nobody else was doing what they're doing. Again, I have talked to guys that played on teams in the last 15 years that have told me that they were I'm not going to say what schools, but they were recording signals too. Other schools have done this before. This is not a foreign concept. This is not a foreign thing that has not happened before. I'm not saying that makes it okay. I am just saying that this is not some sort of advantage that other teams have not tried to create, nor, and I have argued this before, I still don't think it's an advantage that makes things so significantly more in favor of Michigan to win football games. It doesn't automatically.
I vehemently disagree with that. If you know a safety is blitzing and he walks down the box and you call something to counteract that, that's bullshit. Anybody who's ever played the game of football, if you call something, if you got a safety walking down the box and you call something, you call a quick slant and you got man coverage on the outside, Joe, quite honestly, or you call a fade route, that's dog shit. Anybody that understands, there is no way in hell. Joe, are you going to tell me that if Connor Stallions told Sherrone Moore, hey, strong safety blitz here, that he doesn't call something that benefits from that?
If teams are already aware and anticipating, and teams are smart enough to know that their signals are easily decipherable, it's on them for making them that easy to be figured out. That is my point. And that is what I have said multiple times before in the past. And again, we're already falling down the rabbit hole a little bit here. I think that the main talking point that we need to be having is, what the hell is the point of Sherrone Moore suspending himself for 2 games, or him being suspended for 2 games?
Because
what does that do?
Because he cheated. That's why. He's got inappropriate text with Connor Stallions, and there's no other way that you can convince anybody when Joe, they're admitting guilt.
They're obviously admitting guilt, but my point is that why is, outside of of what he did and how wrong it was, all of that crap, him suspending himself, him getting suspended by the school for those 2 games, I don't understand why they think that absolves everything. Like, I don't understand why they think that the NCAA is going to say that's fine.
Okay, I'll give them this. Let me tell you a quick story. So just stay with me here. LSU was a part of a lack of institutional control investigation. They did self-imposed a ban of the postseason, which they would have made. At 5-5, they still would have made the postseason, okay?
Okay.
In that, they did the postseason ban where they did not go. The NCAA accepted that as punishment. I do think, for what it's worth, I do think that any game and especially in a conference game on the road, that they will accept that. I do. And I think that they're trying to find middle ground. Here's what I would tell you. I don't believe, it is not of my belief. I remember during that LSU investigation, LSU AD Scott Woodward was in constant contact with the NCAA, asking them if X, Y, and Z would be acceptable to them if they made the move. I don't think that Michigan makes that move if the NCAA is not going to accept that as reasonable and take that into consideration. It's kind of like a plea deal in some ways. We're going to give you information, meaning Michigan is going to give them information, the NCAA, and in that, we're going to reduce our sentence. That it's exactly what they're doing. I got to be honest with you. I'm not 1,000% convinced on the 2 games alone suspension that they did not give and turn over everything they had to get a lighter sentence.
Well, I'm sure the school wants to be as compliant as possible, and 9 times out of 10, very rarely you'll have a school try to hide evidence. If somebody did something wrong, they're going to go out of their way because they want to avoid lawsuits.
Clearly, Sherrone Moore try to hide evidence.
Right. I think that my point here is I understand the concept. I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to impose their own penalty in order to prove that they are compliant with what the NCAA is about to do. But what you just pointed out, what LSU did, was far more significant of a suspension, of a penalty delivered to that athletic department
than what
Michigan just gave to itself.
Well, they also were in bigger water, deeper water.
Well, but you've also said this, though, that wait. But you've also said this before, though, that there's a chance that this could be a lack of institutional control. And a lot of people have said that this could be a lack of institutional control. Well, I do think
it's a lack of institutional control. When you have at least 3 level 1 violations, it should be. I do think that there was a lack of institutional control. But I don't think that they're going to be hit with that just the same way that LSU was not. LSU was investigated but didn't get hit on it. But Michigan's not even being investigated for lack of institutional control at the current.
Well, but what I'm getting at here is that, okay, self-imposing a postseason ban on yourself, like that is the significant end of the spectrum. That is the most
the worst thing you can do
to yourself. The NCAA can get a lot more vicious. I think that the dipshit, I'm gonna go stick my head in the corner and sit in timeout, is the 2-game suspension. So what I'm trying to get at here is like it really does. And else
scholarships.
Say it again.
If you're Sherrone Moore, would you rather him take scholarships?
No, I don't want him taking scholarships. I just think that if you're going to self-impose a penalty, he should be suspended for like 6 games, because there's no way that the NCAA, this is what I'm trying to get at here, is if they're about to like really progress this thing, there's no shot that they're going to say that 2 games is okay with us to suspend a coach that was on the coaching staff at the time of this happening.
I got to be honest. I don't think that they are. I don't think that they are going to suspend him more than that. I think once they self-impose some things here and they're going to pay a massive fine and it's going to be over with.
Well, the NCAA, this is the one thing that they actually still have power in, which is the outcome. So like Michigan can't sue. Michigan's not going to counter sue in this. They could get completely kicked out of the NCAA if they try to fight this.
I highly doubt extreme.
They could be a lot more vicious with the penalty if Michigan tried to fight back.
Well, listen. Here's the bottom line that anybody for me before we move on here. I understand everybody's thought process in reference to everybody else is doing it. Why come down on them? I do understand it. I would just finish with this in saying just because somebody else is doing it does not make what they did not wrong. And I know I know that you don't agree. You got to take it from my level of where I came from before we started this podcast, brother.
I get that. I totally understand your perspective.
It was my job to do that. I don't get like, and here's the thing. We will never know if it truly benefited them on a title run until 10 years from now when they all do a documentary.
Yeah.
I mean, so let me ask you this question. What if we have a documentary 10 years from now and JJ McCarthy comes out on that thing and he says, hey, bro, Connor Stallions was telling me a whole bunch of shit. Then what?
Well, it'd be probably too late for anything to come. I'm sure eventually we will get that level of answer.
But that's my thing. So we don't have that right now, though. Like, if Sherrone Moore is on that thing, by the way, John Harbaugh will be done with coaching in probably 20 years. What if he's on that thing and he
might not be alive in 20
years?
I
mean, he dips and drinks too much milk. I don't think that's a good combination.
Well, he's in his late 60s. Like, he's going to be 90.
I mean, yeah. So let's just say 10 years he does it. Whatever it is, Joe, whatever it is. If he's on a documentary and he says, oh, 1,000% we did it. 1,000% it benefited us. Then what will we say?
Nothing happens in 20 years. Nothing changes.
Oh, no. But what we will say is,
no one will ever admit that it did. Nobody from Michigan will ever admit that they did. They will admit that. Well, yeah, because he wants to believe that he had some significant impact in their title run. He wants to believe that.
Sherrone Moore admits it without even saying anything by his actions. Sherrone Moore vividly does it by deleting text and accepting a 2-game suspension. That's what you're telling the world.
Joe, I think that is a large inference. That is a very large
he deleted
inference.
Text.
But he's deleting text because he understands that I'm sure that was unaware of what would happen if they deleted them, to know that they could get recovered, and probably didn't want to have evidence that tied back to him.
Then
he knew he was next up. He knew he was the guy who was going to get promoted.
Throw your phone in the river.
iMessages on your computer and shit.
Get a burner.